The world was orange. Not the cheerful, sunrise orange of a child's crayon, but a suffocating, gritty orange that clawed at my throat and burned my eyes. It seeped through every seal, every weld of the cold steel beast that was supposed to protect me. The metal vibrated, a low, guttural hum that resonated in my bones, a constant reminder of the relentless fury raging outside. It felt like being buried alive, not in earth, but in the pulverized bones of a forgotten world. Each grain of sand an accusation, a tiny, stinging reminder of my isolation. My breath hitched, a ragged, desperate gasp that did little to ease the tightening vice around my chest. The air, thick and stale, tasted of metal and fear. The instruments on the panel flickered erratically, their digital glow offering no comfort, only highlighting the dwindling oxygen reserves. Numbers bled into each other, mocking my attempts to focus, to find some semblance of control in this swirling chaos. Panic, a cold serpent, began to coil in my gut. Outside, the storm howled, a banshee's wail that clawed at the thick armor plating. The tank shuddered, a wounded animal caught in a predator's jaws. Visibility was zero. I was blind, deaf, and slowly suffocating in a steel coffin, a prisoner of the sand. My fingers, numb with cold and fear, traced the familiar contours of the emergency release lever, a last resort, a desperate gamble against the certainty of slow asphyxiation. But I hesitated. Outside was death, immediate and brutal. Inside was a lingering, agonizing end. The orange haze morphed, for a fleeting moment, into a soft, golden light. I was 8 again, kneeling beside my grandfather in his dusty workshop. The air hummed with the scent of sawdust and oil, a comforting aroma that chased away the monsters under my bed. He was teaching me to weld, his calloused hand guiding mine, the arc welder spitting sparks like a miniature sun. He'd built this tank, or at least, he'd been part of the team. It was his legacy, a testament to his skill and ingenuity, a symbol of strength and resilience. I remembered him saying, his voice raspy with age, "Steel doesn't break, Anya. It bends. Remember that." His name was Dmitri, but everyone called him Dima. He smelled of pipe tobacco and earth, and his hands, though rough and scarred, were gentle when he held me. He'd tell me stories of his own childhood, of the endless steppes of Kazakhstan, of riding horses bareback under a sky so vast it felt like you could touch the stars. He'd lost his family during the war, a tragedy he rarely spoke of, but I saw the pain etched in the lines around his eyes, a silent testament to the enduring power of grief. He found solace in his work, in building things that would last, things that would protect others. He used to take me to the factory where the tanks were assembled. I was mesmerized by the sheer scale of the operation, the deafening clang of metal, the rivers of sparks, the men and women working tirelessly, their faces grim with purpose. He'd point out the welds, the rivets, the intricate systems that made these machines so formidable. "Each one," he'd say, tapping a thick plate of steel, "is a shield, a promise." He instilled in me a deep respect for engineering, for the power of human ingenuity to overcome adversity. He taught me that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was always hope, always a way to find strength within. But Dima also taught me about the fragility of life. He showed me the wildflowers that stubbornly bloomed in the cracks of the concrete around the factory, tiny bursts of color against the gray landscape. He'd pick them carefully, his large hands surprisingly delicate, and tell me their names, their histories, their secrets. He taught me to appreciate the small things, the beauty that could be found even in the most desolate places. He taught me to breathe, to look, to truly see the world around me. And he taught me, without ever explicitly saying it, that life was precious, a gift to be cherished, even in the face of death. Now, trapped in this steel tomb, his lessons echoed in my ears, a lifeline in the suffocating darkness. The radio crackled again, a distorted voice fighting through the static. "Repeat, Alpha, visibility 0, seek shelter." Then silence. Just the howling wind and the growing sense of suffocation. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through Elias. He clawed at the comms panel, uselessly twisting knobs. Liam, beside him, was a statue, his face pale in the dim emergency lights. The air was thick, heavy with dust, each breath a struggle. He ripped off his helmet, hoping for a moment of clarity, but only choked on the gritty air. "Liam! Do something!" Elias screamed, his voice barely audible above the storm. Liam finally moved, his eyes wide with a fear that mirrored Elias's own. He fumbled with the oxygen tanks, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. The gauge read dangerously low. They hadn't anticipated this. Nobody had. Sandstorms of this magnitude were practically folklore, whispered warnings from the old-timers. We're running out," Liam stammered, his voice cracking. Maybe if we ration." Rationing wouldn't save them. Elias knew it. They were entombed, buried alive in a steel coffin. He remembered his promise to Sarah, the feel of her hand in his as they walked along the beach, the taste of salt on her lips. He'd promised her forever. Forever was looking less and less likely. He closed his eyes, trying to conjure her face, to hold on to that memory as the darkness crept in. He thought of his father, his gruff voice and calloused hands, the way he'd always pushed Elias to be stronger. He'd failed him too. He'd failed them all. Then, Liam screamed. A high-pitched, desperate sound that cut through the roar of the storm. Elias opened his eyes. Liam was pointing at the gauge. It was flickering, dropping rapidly. The tank was empty. Liam began to hyperventilate, his body shaking uncontrollably. He clawed at his throat, his eyes bulging. Elias grabbed him, trying to calm him, but it was no use. Liam was drowning in dust and fear. Elias held him, feeling Liam's body convulse, his struggles growing weaker until finally, he went still. The weight in Elias's arms was suddenly unbearable. He was alone. Utterly, terrifyingly alone. He cradled Liam's body, whispering apologies he knew Liam couldn't hear. He closed his eyes again, waiting for the darkness to claim him too. He imagined Sarah's face, her smile fading as the sand filled his lungs. He pictured his father's disappointment, etched in the lines of his face. He was ready. He doesn't know how long he remained like that, suspended between life and death. Time had lost all meaning. There was only the dust, the darkness, and the crushing weight of despair. He coughed, a dry, racking cough that brought up a mouthful of sand. He was still alive. But for how long? He thought of Sarah again. But this time, it was different. He wasn't thinking of her beauty or her smile. He was thinking of her strength, her unwavering spirit. He remembered the time she'd broken her leg hiking and had refused to be carried, hobbling for miles on her own. She wouldn't give up. And neither would he. He wasn't sure what he could do, but he knew he couldn't just lie there and die. He had to fight. For Liam. For Sarah. For himself. The nightmares come most nights. The feeling of grit in my lungs, the sound of Liam's screams, the suffocating darkness. I wake up gasping for air, my heart pounding, my body drenched in sweat. Sarah holds me, whispers soothing words, but she can't reach the place where I'm trapped. That place belongs only to me, and to Liam. Years have passed since the storm. Years of therapy, of medication, of trying to piece myself back together. I still work for the corporation, but I'm behind a desk now, analyzing data, writing reports. No more field work. No more tanks. They call me a hero. They say I survived against all odds. They tell the story of my resilience, my courage. But they don't know the truth. They don't know that the man who emerged from that tank was not the same man who went in. The guilt is a constant companion. Why did I survive when Liam didn't? What could I have done differently? These questions haunt me, swirling like the sandstorm in my mind. I see Liam's face in every crowd, hear his voice in every gust of wind. He's always there, a silent reminder of my failure. I try to honor his memory, to live a life worthy of his sacrifice, but it's never enough. Sarah tries to understand, but she can't. She wasn't there. She didn't feel the darkness closing in, the hope fading away. She didn't hold Liam as he died. Sometimes I look at her and wonder if she regrets choosing me. If she wishes she had someone whole, someone who wasn't broken by the desert. I see the weariness in her eyes, the strain of living with a ghost. I try to be better for her, to be the man she deserves. But the sandstorm is always there, lurking beneath the surface, ready to engulf me again. It's a part of me now, etched into my soul. I know I'll never truly escape it. The desert took something from me that I can never get back. It took my innocence, my peace of mind, my friend. And it left me with a burden I will carry for the rest of my days. I am a survivor, yes. But I am also a prisoner, trapped in a tank of my own making, forever haunted by the ghosts of the past. And some days I wonder if surviving was worth the cost. The hatch groaned open. Not with the grinding shriek of tortured metal I expected, but a slow, deliberate sigh, as if relieved to finally relinquish its burden. Light, a blinding, ethereal gold, spilled into the tank. I squeezed my eyes shut, the darkness behind my lids throbbing with phantom pain. When I dared to peek, the world was a watercolor wash of ochre and amber. Outside, the storm had passed. The sand lay sculpted into impossible dunes, monuments to the wind's fury. But the air was clean. Sharp. Alive. I gulped it down, my lungs aching with the unfamiliar sensation. I crawled out, limbs heavy and unresponsive. The sand was cool beneath my hands, a stark contrast to the furnace I'd endured. I looked back at the tank, no longer a prison, but a silent, scarred sentinel. It stood half-buried, a metal whale beached on a golden shore. Then I saw them. Figures emerged from the swirling dust, their silhouettes wavering in the heat haze. Not soldiers. Not rescuers. They were nomads. Dressed in flowing robes, their faces veiled against the sun and sand. They moved with a grace that seemed impossible in this harsh landscape, their eyes, when I could see them, holding a deep, ancient wisdom. One of them, an older woman, approached me. She carried a water skin and offered it with a silent gesture. I drank deeply, the cool water a balm to my ravaged throat. When I lowered the skin, she spoke, her voice a low, melodic hum that seemed to resonate with the desert itself. "The desert tests us," she said, her words soft but clear. "It strips away what is unnecessary. It shows us who we truly are." I looked at her, at the endless expanse of sand, at the tank that had been both my tomb and my sanctuary. I thought of the fear, the desperation, the memories that had clawed their way to the surface. And I realized she was right. What happened?" I croaked, my voice still raspy. "The storm, the others." She placed a hand on my arm, her touch surprisingly gentle. "The storm took what it would. But it also gave you something. A second chance. The others, they were lost to the sand. They became part of it." Her words were like a hammer blow. The others, gone. Swallowed by the storm. And I had survived. But why? She seemed to read my thoughts. "You survived because you still had something to learn. Something to give." She pointed towards the horizon, where the sun was beginning its slow descent. "Come. We will take you to our village. There you will find rest. And perhaps, you will find your purpose." I followed them, my bare feet sinking into the sand. Each step was a testament to my survival, a reminder of the ordeal I had endured. As we walked, I looked back one last time at the tank. It was already disappearing, swallowed by the shifting dunes. A monument to loss, yes, but also to resilience. The desert stretched before me, vast and unforgiving. But now, it no longer felt like a threat. It felt like a beginning. A chance to rebuild, to learn, to find meaning in the ashes of my past. The storm had taken everything, but it had also given me something precious, a clean slate. And as I walked towards the setting sun, I knew that I would not waste it. I would honor the memory of those who were lost, and I would live a life worthy of the second chance I had been given. The desert had tested me, and I had survived. Now, it was time to truly live. I was reborn in the sands,